is Voices in PR and Blair. I'm the founder of Ball Communications. Today, we're so excited to have our first guest, Peixi, a New York-based fashion influencer with more than 11,000 followers, to chat with us about social media. So welcome, Peixi.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How I decided to become fashion influencers, actually, I started with my jewelry line, my fine jewelry line. I started doing Instagram for my jewelry. Instagram is called Maison Kui, and that was back in like 2016, kind of. So it's been a while, and from there I started having a lot of fun taking photos and shooting and posting and doing the editing and all of the creative stuff. I've started becoming more creative with my own personal Instagram as well, and then kind of just like took it a little bit more seriously. I took what I learned from my jewelry Instagram over to my personal, was getting more and more serious about it. And then I decided that I would kind of try to grow and focus on growing my personal Instagram and then have people directed to my jewelry that way instead. Just because I was noticing that I was getting a much better engagement with my personal one, because you're able to be a lot more yourself, versus if you're a brand, you have to have like kind of like a brand voice, and it's very obvious to sell the product. Whereas with your personal, you can really be creative, and you can shoot outfits. You can have outfits from anywhere. Whereas with my jewelry, I had to try to mostly push just my personal, my brand and my jewelry. So yeah. So I've always just like gravitated towards kind of more like a clean aesthetic, and with colors as well. With my closet, if you are in my home, you'll be able to see that a lot of my pieces are very neutral. So lots of whites, blacks, browns, nudes, and then little bits of blues and greens too. And you can kind of see that reflected in my feed, just because that's just what I tend to wear and the colors I'm drawn to. So and also I do try to keep things like I like to keep my feed planned. I know some people don't like doing that, but for me it's like a creative outlet. So I do like to keep it like having or consistent with a certain aesthetic that feels very much like myself and my style. So you can see in my photos, a lot of my clothes, it's classic, but then has a little bit of trendiness to it, and then or like a little bit of edge to it. I like to mix masculine and feminine type of styles. So I think my personal style and those colors that I tend to get drawn to are reflected in my feed and my photos. Content-wise, I think it took me a while to really get to the point where I felt like I was growing consistently. So in terms of just obviously you have to engage. We all know on Instagram engagement is super important. But if we're talking about just content, I used to do kind of just like fashion in general, which is kind of vague. And over the last year, or maybe like 6 months or so, I started really like fine-tuning and focusing on luxury. So like luxury lifestyle, luxury fashion. Of course, like in a way that's still accessible to everyone. So that is kind of a niche. I would call that a niche, and I think that is very helpful with growing your followers. Like it's helped me get reposted on some of these like designer repost pages that have lots of followers and have driven traffic to my page that way. So that's one. And then also I really believe in having a content that adds value to someone's life. So personally, I feel like if someone's taking the time to read my content, I want them to take something away from it. So of course, like not every single one of my posts has like a style tip, but I do try to incorporate that as much as I can. So sharing anything new that I've learned, or sharing anything that I like. Okay, for example, my latest post, or yesterday's post was about how I put like a brooch on a Zara bag, a Chanel brooch with a Zara bag, and how that elevated it. And whether it's something that someone hates or likes, it's something that I've tried and thought I would share it with people. And then, if they're into it, they can try it too. And if they're not, they're not. So stuff like that, it's fun. And I feel like a lot of the response I've gotten from my audience has been very encouraging. They love it when I share these styling tips and stuff like that, and little tricks that I've learned. So I think that has definitely helped as well with having an engaged following too. Collaboration wise, I would say that my favorite one's actually from with luxury fashion rentals, and they don't have a huge following, but I really like the concept of what they're doing. So it's a handbag rental company, and I've worked with them for a couple of months now, like 4 months or so, and they've just been really lovely to work with. But I also truly believe in the platform and whatever their business model. So, because I love luxury, and what I do is a luxury handbags, so like they rent Chanel's out. You can do like a monthly rental or every 2 weeks kind of rental. And that allows people who may not necessarily be ready to invest like $5,000 in a purse to try it out for a month and see if they like it, they enjoy it, or maybe for a special event like a birthday month, that having that accessibility is really great. And also I think, just having a more sustainable, like Rent the Runway. I love Rent the Runway. Blair, I know you love Rent the Runway too. So it's a similar concept, and I do really like that concept where, you can try to own a little bit less. I'm trying really hard to, do that as well, even though of course there's a lot of tempting stuff online. But yeah, that I think has been one of my favorite projects. It's really fun because I'm able to be very vocal and creative on what the deliverables are. So our partnership is not one that's like, okay, well, you need to do 3 pictures and this is the caption you have to use is this. It's kind of much more like fluid. So they asked me like, what do you think works? Why don't you want to try something? Like, do you want to try a giveaway? Or if I suggest like Instagram Reels and they like it, they'll be like, okay, next month can we do that again? So it's very like communicative. So I think that's one of my favorite projects, I'd say.
That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
I would also love to try that.
Yeah, you will love it. They have lots of cool stuff. I think in terms of mentality and approach, I would say that the most important thing is to not focus so much about the numbers, like not focusing on how many followers you have or how many likes you have. Like, of course, those things, like if you're posting something of quality, it can get a little discouraging if you're not seeing those numbers. I get it, but I do think it's not healthy to keep focusing on those. Like for me, I've always focused on the content I provide, and I think that's super important, is just making sure that you're being true to yourself, posting what you enjoy. And for me, it's always been a creative outlet. So whether I have like 1,000 followers or 10,000 followers, I've never really let the numbers like affect me too much. It's much more about like how I feel about the photos I'm posting. Am I elevating my game? Like, am I taking better photos? Kind of stuff like that. And then again, like the value that I'm adding to my audiences. And I think it's normal. People like, for people who've been in doing social media for a long time, it's very normal to focus on that. But I think it's always good to take a step back and just, when you find yourself caught up in that, just be like, you know what, it doesn't really matter that much. It's as long as you're happy with the content you're putting out, that's what matters. And of course, like there are a lot of different things that you can do with reach and trying to get that reach out there and have more people see your amazing content. But I think that's a whole different strategy altogether. It's really hard to say. I really like them for different reasons. So Instagram, the cool thing about Instagram is that there's just so much content there, and there's a lot of it that's very aesthetically pleasing, which I personally value. You know, I like looking at beautiful pictures. I like looking at creatively shot photos and stuff like that. So I really do like that for Instagram. And then of course, like they're really great like outfits on Instagram that you look at and you're like, okay, that's inspiring to help me, you know, curate my own style and curate what I want to purchase next. But with YouTube, it's very different. With YouTube, I can get a lot more in-depth knowledge about things. So for example, right now I'm learning Like to Know It. I just got on that platform and I'm using YouTube to learn how, you know, how it works, because it's quite a complex. It's not as straightforward as just, you know, posting a picture. You have to link stuff. You need 2 different apps, like all that kind of things that YouTube is very, very helpful with things like that. And, you know, it's much more engaging. YouTube is much more engaging. Like you really feel like you know the person whose video you're watching, because it's much more long form. So I like them for very different reasons, but I'm definitely more active on Instagram just because it's easier. You know, like you post a photo, it's much faster than like editing a video. It takes me like 4 hours to edit, like an hour to shoot. So it's a very different process. For now, I think especially now that Instagram came out with Reels and this IGTV, Instagram is still like I would say my favorite. But YouTube is very different, and I've been watching YouTube for like years and years before I even started my channel. So yeah, and there's a lot of like silly stuff too, you know, like comedy. Yeah, so it's very different. It's a very different platform, but they both have their pros. My daily life, it kind of is a mix of things depending on day to day, but I'll say generally it's posting, shooting, filming, lots of editing because I'm editing photos and videos, and then talking with brands. So, you know, going through my emails, negotiating, all of that, and then I get sent lots of products too. So lots of unboxings, lots of trying out different products, which that part is like, I feel very lucky and blessed to be able to experience. And then of course, like there's the posting part where, you know, you have to post not just the photos, but also videos. And it takes time to write your captions and, you know, descriptions on YouTube. So that a lot of these things that people think don't take a lot of time actually takes a long time, and it can fill up your day really quickly. So that's how I'd say a typical day looks like. So just juggling a bunch of different like creative related things. It's different when you're doing it for fun and you don't care about the quality of the photo, and there's not much thought, and you're just putting like emojis as a caption. That's so different, right? I mean, you can do that in like 5-10 minutes, sure. But when you're writing a thoughtful caption, you're making sure your feed is cohesive. You're making sure your photo is aesthetically pleasing and high quality. Like that does take a long time. And then there are also so many new things that, you have to learn. So for example, like some part of my time right now is spent learning Like to Know It so that I can see how I can monetize on there. And then also in next month, I would like to start my own blog. So that's going to be another thing that I'm going to have to spend hours and hours learning to figure out how to do it, how to build it. So yeah, there's a lot of that part of your time that you spend to learn, or, even like Instagram Reels, right? When it just came out, it's like, how do we use it? How does it work? It's a lot of like researching and getting a good sense of the platform. So with organization, I always make sure to use my Google Calendar. That's very important to me. And if I find that if I don't, like there's been like a week where I didn't really put stuff into my calendar and it was a whole mess. And things got delayed. So after that one experience, I realized like how much I rely on it. I, make sure everything, any appointments, any deliverables that I need to shoot or edit is on my calendar. I also have a spreadsheet of all the collaborations that I'm doing that's ongoing. So, different columns. That's that's me. Like I was in sales for a long time, so that organization piece is really important. Making sure you stay organized on basically your leads, which in a way it's kind of like collabs. They collabs with your customers, your clients, right? So making sure that you're keeping track of the when your deliverable is due, what stage you're in, have you shot it yet, have you not shot it, and then have you been paid yet, is it completely done and closed, or is it still pending? So there's a lot of things that, having just like using a spreadsheet and using Google Calendar is super helpful to make sure you stay organized and don't miss anything. So with posting, I don't schedule my posts that much. I know how some people have like post schedule, like with some app where you can write the caption beforehand. I don't do that, but of course I have like my feed planned out. So with every time I do a collaboration, I have to make sure that it fits in with my timeline as well, because there's just a lot of different posts that are like pending or you have already blocked out for specific projects. Well, I think for me, it's a lot of the audience, my audience's reassurance, like their responses, especially with, I think with YouTube, for example, let's just use that for an example, right? Because I started that just a couple of months ago, and I started with nothing. So I had no videos, I've never done that before. And people who supported me, like, could be someone on Instagram who followed my Instagram page and saw that I have a YouTube video and messaged me directly being like, oh my gosh, I found your video so helpful. And leaving me like really constructive feedback and telling me how a video has helped them decide between two things that they were going to buy, or they were going to buy this bag and decided that they wouldn't because of my video, that it wasn't going to be a good fit for them. So things like that really motivates me because, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I really care about is adding value to someone else's life. So when someone confirms that I have done that, it's very fulfilling for me. And on top of that, I think having that creative outlet is also very motivating for me, because I am just in general a creative person. So when I was working just like a 9-to-5 job, you're lacking that fulfillment that comes from that creative side. So when you have a creative outlet, even if like people, like I said, having people respond is great, but even if I didn't have that, it's still really fulfilling for me, just because I'm able to see like, oh wow, like, I've posted, my photos have increased in quality and it's getting better and better. People are liking my content more and more. So seeing that level of, I guess, growth is also really great. Yeah, also very motivating. And also, I think, one thing that I like almost didn't remember, but I think is also, I should make a point in saying that also, is like working with these brands and helping them reach a bigger audience is also like very fulfilling. It's something that, we do and we don't really think twice about. But when you really look back at it, you're like, wow, like, for example, I think just like with luxury fashion rentals, let's use that as an example again. When people were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this service existed. I feel like I've helped two parties, right? I helped my audience know about the product, and I've also helped the brand reach a bigger audience. So, as a small business owner, like I understand how hard it can be. So that part is also something that I value a lot too.